The KRMS 2022 Candidate Forum. My name is Guy Wayman, and to my right is Tony Herman, and the two of us will be your hosts for the evening. The KRMS 2022 Candidate Forum is brought to you in part by Vicki Lloyd Seal the Deal Team, Remax, Lake of the Ozarks, Ellerman Roofing, a division of Kimes Corp., My Lake Ozark Office.com, Sam Trapp, Wade Covington, Century 21, Prestige at the Lake, Alpha Graphics, The Dam Dock Company, Econolift, Mocan Roofing and Contracting, My Prime Lending, Allen Motor Company, Top Deck, Skelton's Key and Lock, Tonka Hills Restaurant, Slumberland Furniture, JJ Twigs, Polylift, Papos, Rough Water Docks, Big Bags USA, Foundation Recovery Services, Ozark Touchless Covers, and the Encore Lakeside Grill and Sky Bar. The KRMS 2022 Candidate Forum is being broadcast live from the Encore Lakeside Grill and Sky Bar and broadcast on News Talk KRMS, AM 1150, FM 97.5, and FM 103.3. It is also broadcast live on the Lake Channel, which is KRMS TV 32, live streamed on KRMSradio.com, KRMSTV32.com, and the KRMS Facebook page. We wish to thank the Encore Lakeside Grill and Sky Bar for their gracious hospitality and support in hosting this event. Also, the Lake Ozark Police Department and Mark Cordula. This evening, we'll be having candidates running for the office of prosecuting attorney, state representative, state senator, U.S. representatives from District 4, circuit clerk, associate judge, and presiding commissioners. An invitation was extended to every person that was on the ballot for all the races, and what you will see in here tonight are the candidates that have chosen to share their positions with you, the voter. We want to thank each person for coming this evening, and we want to thank you that are with us here at the Encore, and for those watching and listening through radio and television. Before we get to the candidates, though, we would like everybody to stand for tonight's national anthem. Here is Presley Puick.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the balls bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you very much, Presley. We would now like to welcome the Honorable Judge Aaron Coppin. Judge, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Hopefully I'm sitting close enough to this. I want to welcome everybody to this candidates forum. I see a lot of candidates here. You know it's getting close to the election because they're tanner than they usually are, and there's a few tired bodies walking through this door, I think ready for a certain date to get here. But I really want to thank KRMS and Ms. Bunch for inviting me. It's an honor to come here and give some brief opening remarks. I'm going to do something a little different. I did this a couple years ago, and I'm going to pivot and go a different direction. So, for those of you that don't know, I'm a judge. I've been a judge for about 12 years. I was an associate circuit judge and now a circuit judge elected by you, the people. And in that 12 years, I decided, you know what, I'm just going to share 12 life lessons that I've learned one lesson for each year that I've been on the bench. And I hope this is helpful to the candidates, to all that are listening. It sure has been helpful to me, and these lessons I've learned through the process of trial and error, observation, and many other ways. But let me just share a few of those. Number one, be slow to judge. Reserve judgment until you have all the facts. Quick judgments are rarely sound judgments. Lesson number two, no amount of success professionally can ever make up for failing your home and your family. Lesson number three, pride and arrogance has torn apart more families than infidelity, finances, or anything else. Number four, govern your own life. No amount of government can replace self-governance. The dream of liberty only survives when each of us govern and manage our own lives responsibly. We can't rely on our good law enforcement officers and the justice system to govern every aspect of our life, nor do we want that. Lesson number five, love is not always nice. Frequently, the most loving act is often allowing one to face the consequences of one's choices. Fight the natural urge to always want to shield others from consequences. We are likely robbing them of valuable lessons. Lesson number six, people can change. Nothing that I know produces change more effectively than allowing someone to feel the consequence of his or her choice. Lesson number seven, actions always speak louder than words. If you say one thing and then do the opposite, your position is very clear. Lesson number 8. Crime victims can become powerful leaders. And I've seen this firsthand. Victims that take unspeakable acts committed against them and use them as an opportunity for growth can soar. On the flip side, victims that allow themselves to develop a victim mentality only prolong the suffering and stunt their personal growth. Lesson number 9, stay in your lane. Do what you were supposed to do really well and trust that others will do the same. If they don't, well, it will work out just fine for you. Lesson number 10, have courage to admit you were wrong. Be quick to admit mistakes and celebrate those that do the same. This is courageous. Lesson number 11, mourn tragedy. But remember to let it remind us of our blessings. This is one of the last great tributes we can make to those we've lost. I believe happiness can be found in the darkest of times. And then lesson number 12, the more I learn, the more I realize how little I know and how much more I want to learn. I'm going to throw in a bonus lesson, something that I learned or was reminded of tonight as I heard the beautiful national anthem. This is a great country. It's not perfect, neither is the justice system. But we cannot, will not, should not ever give up. Just as Winston Churchill once said, never give up, never, never give up on this great land. I want to thank all of you for giving me the honor of kicking things off, well, the second act of kicking things off. And I look forward very much to serving you for many more years to come. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Judge Coppin. You're watching and listening to the Candidate Forum on KRMS Radio and TV. We'll be right back with the candidates running for prosecuting attorney of Miller County right after these messages.
Property damages, lost lives, horrible losses caused by floods can be minimized or prevented. DRIPS LLC believes the best way to prevent human suffering is through a fast and simple, stress-free barrier system. One 5-connected bag system replaces 750 regular sandbags and can be set up and filled in place by 2 men in less than 10 minutes. That's 200 times faster deploy than regular sandbags. Not only are our Big Bags USA barrier systems easy to lengthen and stack, but they conform to all types of terrain. Now is the time to implement a cost-saving, efficient deployment barrier plan and method. It's never too early to be prepared. Request a free quote today by calling 800-337-0537.
The convenience of it is what makes it awesome. Use the boat twice as much.
I've had these touchless covers for about 3 years now. I have them on all 3 boats here on the dock.
We don't have to constantly clean spiders off of our boats.
I'm able to come out by myself, raise them up, put them back down. They've made all the difference for me.
What makes a great real estate professional? Experience? Maybe communication? Reliability? A 3-time President's Award winner and ranked #1 Century 21 professional in Missouri. Don't settle for average. Learn more at c21athelake.com.
I'm Wade Covington, and I approve this message.
Stop scrubbing your bottom for heaven's sakes. Just stop and see us. Econolift at the lake.
Econolift uses only the highest quality materials, completely galvanized metal parts, and totally enclosed polyethylene tanks for more stability in high traffic water. Made with 100% virgin plastic, not recycled plastic that could weaken your tanks. And they're backed by a lifetime warranty. That's why Econolift is the most dependable yet affordable boat hoist available today.
Econolift at the lake.
Well, welcome back. Before we get started, we have a few ground rules in which we need to cover. The candidates will be given 2 minutes for their opening and closing comments and 90 seconds to respond to each question being asked. We have a timekeeper located in the front of the stage, and once a question has been presented and a response given, the clock will start. Please be respectful of the time. This forum is designed to give residents in the business community the opportunity to become more informed and to give everyone a chance to meet the candidates. To the audience here in the hall, you will be given an opportunity to applaud for the candidates when we have finished the forum. Booing and cheering for your candidate during the forum is not allowed, and disruptors will be removed from the hall. First, let's begin with the candidates for prosecuting attorney for Miller County. On the left is Matt Howard. On the right is Jared J. Harms. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Good evening.
Okay, Matt, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, sir. My name is Matt Howard. I'm a candidate for the Miller County prosecuting attorney. I have been a resident and a lawyer here in Miller County since 1985, where I came to work and live immediately upon graduation from law school. And during this campaign, I had an opportunity to count that up, and that's 37 years, and it's hard for me to believe it's been that long. I don't feel that old, but it has been. During that time, I have had the great opportunity to live in this community, raise 2 wonderful sons, and just have kind of the adventure of a lifetime as a small-town lawyer, and also serve as an assistant prosecutor and as an elected prosecutor. I've racked up in that time a total 15 years prosecuting experience, and so I think in this particular election, my strong point, my selling point, which sets me apart, is the amount and depth of experience that I would bring to the office. I most recently served as the elected prosecutor from 2007 until 2014. I was asked by a number of people to make myself available to run to give voters a choice. I have evaluated statistics from the Miller County's criminal justice system over the last 10 years, and we have almost a near crisis level remarkable drop in our conviction rate and our incarceration rate, and we have far too many offenders on the streets, and I aim to change that and reclaim some of our prison and Department of Corrections space to get some of these offenders off the streets. So,
all right, thank you, Jay.
Good evening. My name is Jay Harms, and I'm running for the Miller County Prosecuting Attorney's Office. When I started the campaign, I decided to use the slogan, "I am committed to Miller County." I have shown my commitment from the time I was a young person. On my 17th birthday, I signed up for the National Guard. I did basic training between my junior year and senior year in high school. I started college. I went to the Army and joined up full-time in the Army. It took me 9 years to get my undergrad degree because I worked on it the entire time I was in the service. I graduated the same month I got out of the service and started working in healthcare administration, doing business and strategic planning. Had great experience in administration, learning budgeting, learning the actual business of business. During that process, I was working with attorneys, and I started having an interest in going to law school, so I started law school at night while I was working full-time. I wound up going full-time to law school, finishing up at Mizzou in 2005, and moved back to the area. The reason I moved back to this area, I came from here. I wanted to be here. I have 2 children that I want to raise here. But most importantly, I joined this race because I want to make sure that my children and your children have a good, safe place to be and to live and to grow up and become good, productive people. I, too, looked at statistic rates and found a pretty big disparity in the number of cases that were being filed throughout the last 10 years, 15 years. And they have increased over in Miller County, but I think I can do better. That commitment that I brought to everything I do, I'm going to bring to the Miller County Prosecutor's Office, and I will ensure that I work for you, not just for my family, but for your family as well. Thank you.
Okay, gentlemen, we're going to start with the questions, and we're going to start with Matt Howard tonight. With the limited budget for Miller County Prosecutor's Office, as prosecuting attorney, how will you maximize your budget dollars in the areas of staffing and your ability to litigate cases successfully?
Well, the budget for the Miller County Prosecutor's Office is actually comparatively generous to what it was, say, 10 or 15 years ago. We increasingly, through the court system here in the 26th Judicial Circuit, do more at all levels with less because of the ability to harness technology. That flows right through to being able to command the trial dockets and to get the work out the door. And it's a never-ending process, but it's doable. There are some structural things that I would change going forward, but I believe there's enough budget there to have adequate staff and to get the job done to everyone's satisfaction.
Jay Harms, with the limited budget for the Miller County's Prosecutor's Office, as prosecuting attorney, how will you maximize your budget dollars in the areas of staffing and your ability to litigate cases successfully?
In the area of staffing, I've identified several grant processes that we can go through and apply for grants to help increase staff, increase the salaries for the staff that we have now. I think it's important to make sure that we have good, stable staff in the office so we have consistency in the prosecution of the cases. In the area of trial and taking cases to trial, I think working with the county commission, trying to increase, if we need to exceed our budget for that, try to increase the budget where necessary, given on a case-by-case basis. We would wind up in situations where plea agreements might be used more liberally if we run out of funds, which I don't like that, but there is a constraint there where we may have to look at it. Also, using creative sentencing in conjunction with plea agreements, I think, is also important to ensure that people do have a penalty for breaking the law in Miller County. If that means going forward and putting and asking for additional funds to be able to have expert witnesses or have the technology, that needs to be something that the county commission and I work with to make sure that we can protect the citizens of Miller County.
All right, this next question will start with you, Jay. Many counties in the state of Missouri have adopted alternative sentencing courts such as DUI and drug court and veterans court. Do you favor establishing these alternative courts in Miller County?
Very much so. I was very happy to see that Miller County and 26th Circuit in general established a drug court. The resources in the drug court are very limited and have there's very much more demand than what we can actually fit into the drug court. We do, as prosecutors, have the ability to look at creative sentencing and look at different areas that we can work with defendants to ensure that if they can break the cycle, especially drug use is a big one, if they can break that cycle of where they live, of who they hang around with, getting them into rehab programs, they don't necessarily have to go through the drug court program to do that. As a creative prosecutor, we can look at having deferred prosecution agreements to make sure that they are completing the steps that would normally be completed through the drug court, but without actually having them go through the drug court. I've said it many times, shame on you, or fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. I don't have a problem working with people, but if they're going to be repeat offenders and continually come in, that's where we're going to have to look at really going for jail time and incarceration, or something a little more severe than just trying to break that cycle.
Okay, Matt, we're going to go with you. The same question. Many counties in the state of Missouri have adopted alternative sentencing courts, such as DUI and drug court and veterans courts. Do you favor establishing these alternative courts in Miller County?
I do. It's been my experience over the years that what the benefit of a drug court, DUI court, a veterans court is that we bring out in the open what lots of prosecutors and judges have been doing for years, which is informally meeting the offender where he or she can receive treatment or try to correct their situation and benefit themselves without just going to jail or paying a fine or some more typical sanction that you would see applied in a court. The having it out in the open where you have a regular drug court docket and have a judge involved increases accountability on the part of all the active participants. The key in those programs is always trying to select participants who are really going to be committed to making that change. Otherwise, they don't have a chance. Unless they want to change, they'll never succeed. Some people don't have any alternative except to go sit for an extended period of time at the Department of Corrections, and sometimes that's the treatment they need. But there's a lot of people that can benefit, and I'm open to that and would welcome increasing opportunities for people to get the help they need in those programs.
Mr. Howard, woke prosecutors across this country are creating policies that are very favorable to criminals. What is your prosecutorial philosophy when deciding on which cases to file, what cases to accept a plea agreement, and what cases to try?
Can I ask, did you say woke prosecutors? Was that the opening descriptor that you used? Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So the woke prosecutors and the situations you see, typically, let's talk about St. Louis City, San Francisco, Los Angeles, those scenarios are so far removed from what I think the common experience is here in central Missouri that it's hard for me really to make a meaningful response. But typically, it's been my experience, the prosecutor's office, while I've been a prosecutor, you evaluate every case, and if the evidence is there to merit a prosecution and have the correct likelihood of conviction beyond a reasonable doubt, then those cases are worthy to be filed. I don't see any particular area of cases, whether it be traffic, wildlife violations, drug violations, property crimes, or otherwise, that we would downgrade in priority. I think all of those cases have an important role in having those offenders be held accountable, and so we would prosecute all those things, and I don't think there would be any that would need to be left out. And I have been a very vigorous prosecutor in my career and would intend to continue to do so.
Mr. Harms, woke prosecutors across the country are creating policies that are very favorable to criminals. What is your prosecutorial philosophy when deciding on which cases to file, which cases to accept a plea deal, and which cases to try?
The first principle I have going in as prosecutor is that prosecuting crime deters crime. If you don't prosecute, then the crime rates will go up. We saw that happen from 2006 to 2014. We saw the crime rates go up. We want to see those crime rates go down by vigorously prosecuting cases. That means working with the Sheriff's Department, working with the local police departments, working with the Highway Patrol, working with the Mustang Drug Task Force to gather the evidence that we need to be able to bring a case that we can make stick. Everybody in this room who has an experience or who's had an experience with a crime happening to them knows that that crime is the most important crime to them. I cannot let go of the fact that every crime in Miller County is going to be important to me, because that's why I'm here, is to stand up for every person in Miller County. When it comes to any kind of plea agreement, of course, the severity of the crime, the nature of the crime, what happened to that person, what the impact is on the victim, and of course what is a good solid penalty for the person committing that crime is going to be the foremost priority for me. I'm not afraid to take cases to trial. I'm in court every day. Believe it or not, that's why I'm in a suit today, because I was in court in 2 different counties today. I go to court. I'm not afraid of trying cases, and if I need to try a case, I'm going to try that case.
All right. Now, in reference to that question, we're going to start with you, Jay. When a case becomes before your desk, do you have a red line of which ones you're going to prosecute, like, say, to the max, or which ones you might say, let's make a deal?
I don't know that I have a red line. Anything that winds up on my desk is going to be a crime. That's what I'm there for, is for the law enforcement officers to bring me the facts they've gathered and establish that there is a crime that's been committed. Every single crime is going to be something that I am going to look at to bring the case or not. Someone asked me, what metric am I going to be looking at? What kind of levels am I going to be looking at as far as how many cases I file, or what my conviction rate is, or how many people I sentence to DOC? For me, it is going to be the simple metric of, I'm going to file the cases that come upon my desk. I'm going to seek just sentences for the people that break the law, and I'm going to ensure that crime goes down in our community. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm committed to this job.
Okay, Matt, it'd be the same question to you. And in reference to that previous question, when a case comes before your desk, what would be your red line to either prosecute to the max or let's make a deal?
The question as to how vigorously to prosecute depends in large part about the evidence that you have, and it depends on, in virtually every case, there are a few exceptions, but in virtually every case, at least the serious cases, there are conversations. The offenders are represented. They have the right to an attorney, and there are conversations, and it would surprise a lot of people, but even in very serious cases, there are conversations about whether or not the offender is going to be able to admit to any culpability and take any accountability for his action, and that's certainly a factor. If the evidence is sufficient and the crime has been committed and the offender refuses to acknowledge any culpability or accept any responsibility, those cases go all the way to trial. They receive the maximum prosecution. The recommendation at sentencing, if there's a conviction, may vary depending on the facts of the case, but and it takes years of experience to decide appropriate sanctions to recommend as part of a negotiated plea process. And that's frankly how most cases are resolved, and it needs to be a process which is handled with some expertise.
What professional legal experience, and we'll go with you, Mr. Howard, I'm sorry, what professional legal experience do you possess that makes you believe that you will be a successful prosecuting attorney for Miller County?
Well, as I said in my introductory remarks, I've been a prosecutor for many years. I've also defended criminal cases, some of which, believe it or not, involved innocent people accused of a crime. And I'm proud of that work as well. But during my 15 years as an assistant and elected prosecutor, I've received hundreds of hours of specialized prosecutor training. I have had hundreds of hours of continuing education. I have trained police officers, supervised other prosecutors, prosecuted thousands of cases ranging from traffic to murder cases, tried hundreds of trials and hearings, including several very difficult and hard homicide and other serious felony cases, drafted hundreds of search warrants. So I think I have been there in the trenches quite a little bit and have the experience to do the job. And I would compare my experience to an education to anybody in the profession right now.
Mr. Harms, what professional legal experience do you possess that makes you believe that you will be a successful prosecuting attorney for Miller County?
I'll be a successful prosecuting attorney for Miller County because I've worked with law enforcement. I've worked with prosecutors' offices. I chose not to represent criminal defendants in my law practice. I chose instead to work on behalf of children and families that have been in the legal process that need to have a criminal prosecution occur. I've worked with law enforcement to gather the evidence. I've worked with the prosecuting attorney's offices to gather that information and get it to them so charges could be filed. In some instances, it's been very difficult to get somebody to actually listen to me because they want to do the prosecution. They want to handle that themselves. They don't like an outsider stepping in. The experience I have, like I said, I'm in a courtroom consistently. I have court 3 days this week. I had court 4 days last week. It's just being in the courtroom, having that legal experience, and knowing how to evaluate the judges, look at the jurors, work with the different attorneys that are involved in this. So the experience that I bring, while it's not necessarily prosecutorial experience, certainly is courtroom experience, and that energy and the commitment that I bring to the office, then that's what we need for Miller County.
All right, now you each have 2 minutes to kind of put a close on this. Jay, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I've said it several times tonight. I'm committed to Miller County. I live in Miller County. I was brought up in Miller County. I raised my children in Miller County. I serve on boards because I'm committed to making sure that we have a good county, a good community. I serve on the Miller County Ambulance Board. I serve on my local school district. I serve on my parish council, and I teach Sunday school because I believe all of those things are important to ensure that my children have a good experience when they grow up and that everybody else's families have good experiences if they need some type of service. That commitment is what is necessary to do this job and do this job for you, the people of Miller County. One of my big things that I am very proud of is that I am funding this. That shows my commitment. I am funding my campaign. When you look at my campaign filing reports, I received one $200 contribution from one client who insisted I take it. I appreciate it very much, but he would not let me return it. And other than that, every other penny that I put into my campaign is from me. That is my commitment. I'm willing to give up my private practice. I'm willing to use my money to run and earn your vote. And I ask for your vote on August 2nd. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Howard.
Thank you, sir. It has been my greatest privilege in my prior service as a prosecutor to represent the people here in Miller County and perform that prosecutor function. I think in the years that I did do that work, I think it was done well. I had good team relationships established and still have longstanding relationships of mutual respect with a lot of law enforcement officers and judges. I was proud when I was elected prosecutor the last 2 years that I was in office. Miller County ranked ninth and then 7th out of 115 Missouri counties as having the highest felony conviction rates in the state for both those last 2 years. And that is something that takes years of work to get your docket moved along to that point. And we are seriously in need of returning to that level of prosecution here in Miller County, because it's if you talk to the people in the county, people are hurting. They're tired of the people coming in from all over and committing crimes here and leaving them as victims. I ask for your vote on August 2nd, and I would point out that I do have the experience that's going to matter, and I look forward to returning to the prosecutor's office, because the greatest thing about being a prosecuting attorney is, apart from all other lawyers, you never have to lie. When you go in court, you can always tell the truth, and you never have to shade it, because you're there on behalf of justice and truth. And that's what I'd like to do. Thank you.
Those are the candidates for prosecuting attorney for Miller County, Matt Howard and Jay Harms. You're watching and listening to the Candidate Forum on KRMS Radio and TV. We'll be back in a moment with the candidate running for state representative of District 123. We'll be back.
What makes a great real estate professional? Experience? Maybe communication? Reliability? A 3-time President's Award winner and ranked #1 Century 21 professional in Missouri. Don't settle for average. Learn more at c21athelake.com.
I'm Wade Covington, and I approve this message.
For the foundation contracting services you need, count on the name you can trust when you choose the team at Foundation Recovery Services. Let our team of dedicated professionals provide the service and high-quality workmanship you deserve when it comes to your recovery needs. We specialize in basement waterproofing, foundation repair, concrete repair, egress window and ventilation, and more. Give us a call today or visit us online to learn more information.
The convenience of it is what makes it awesome. Use the boat twice as much.
I've had these touchless covers for about 3 years now. I have them on all 3 boats here on the dock.
We don't have to constantly clean spiders off of our boats.
I'm able to come out by myself, raise them up, put them back down. They've made all the difference for me.
Property damages, lost lives, horrible losses caused by floods can be minimized or prevented. DRIPS LLC believes the best way to prevent human suffering is through a fast and simple, stress-free barrier system. One 5-connected bag system replaces 750 regular sandbags and can be set up and filled in place by 2 men in less than 10 minutes. That's 200 times faster deploy than regular sandbags. Not only are our Big Bags USA barrier systems easy to lengthen and stack, but they conform to all types of terrain. Now is the time to implement a cost-saving, efficient deployment barrier plan and method. It's never too early to be prepared. Request a free quote today by calling 800-337-0537.
Welcome back to the 2022 Candidate Forum, being simulcast on News Talk KRMS Radio and KRMS TV 32, streaming on KRMSradio.com, KRMSTV32.com, and the KRMS Facebook page. Joining us this evening is the candidate for Missouri State Representative, District 123, Dr. Lisa Thomas. Welcome, Dr. Thomas.
Glad to be here.
All right. Tony.
Dr. Thomas, May is National Mental Health Awareness Month. The state and the nation has just gone through the COVID-19 pandemic. What lessons do you feel the state has learned, and what remedies would you like to see enacted for the state of Missouri and its citizens to make them stronger and better equipped for the future?
Well, I appreciate that question. As a medical doctor and in particular a psychiatrist, that's right in my wheelhouse, so thank you very much. That's a passion of mine to try to make sure that people are educated about health issues, mental health issues, and of course with the crisis that we went through, that started out and nobody exactly knew what COVID was. So we can forgive having some lockdowns and some early restrictions as people were trying to feel their way and figure out exactly what was going on. But fortunately, very quickly in Missouri, science prevailed, and we had a governor and some local areas which realized, you know what, we don't need lockdowns. Masks don't work. We know that. Finally, the truth is coming out. And I think it's important that we allow local control because instead of a statewide rule, there are differences at different areas of the state, and people have different philosophies. But from a science perspective, we have learned an awful lot. There was no need, and even Fauci has finally said there was no need, never has been, and won't be a need to lock down students and keep them out of the classroom. A little too late to be saying that. We are now facing a mental health crisis as a result of that. So we should not keep kids out of school. We should follow, as I said, true science, not try in any way, shape, or form to silence people who are speaking truth. You do not have to buy the government line. I guess time out. Sorry about that. I could spend all evening talking about this.
Did you want to finish that sentence?
Sure. Again, I think we need to allow all the different voices to be heard, and the truth will prevail. Science does win out, despite we did have some very prominent and still have some prominent voices trying to tell us that we might need to mask up again. But honestly, asking the standard type cloth mask to stop a virus is truly like asking a fence, kind of a standard chain link fence, to stop a BB. It doesn't work.
All right, the Grain Belt Initiative and property rights both affect Missourians and the agriculture business. What are your views on the Grain Belt project and protecting the property rights of the people?
Again, an excellent question, and one that goes to the core of my beliefs that we need to protect personal or private property. That's one thing that makes the United States unique. We own private and personal property. That doesn't happen in communist countries. The government owns it. You don't own it. So we absolutely need to protect private property. There, with the Grain Belt Express, that was, in my opinion, a bad project because it was going to deprive farmers of fair value for their land. It was going to cut across farms. I mean, you would take somebody's property, cut through it. Now, how do you farm that when you have this transmission line with enormous easements on each side, cutting through your pasture or your farmland? It doesn't work. And again, they were not going to be giving fair value. In addition to that, there were no off-ramps. The energy that was going to be produced in that project wasn't benefiting Missourians. We were literally essentially like flyover state. We were passover state. It was just transmission to get that energy elsewhere. So thank goodness Mike Hafner worked tirelessly in the House to actually get a good bill through, which means farmers will be paid 150% of their land value. And there are, and I don't know the numbers exactly, but there is a requirement that a certain amount of energy be offloaded so that Missourians benefit, not just, like I said, being flyover country.
Dr. Thomas, we'll stay with you. And
thank you.
In various states, education is on the front side of the issues. How important is getting the wages raised for the teachers of our state? On a related issue, how can we get our healthcare system standards raised so that Missouri will be, not just can be, but will be on the cutting edge and a place that nurses and doctors will want to work?
Well, you're bringing in a couple different issues there. Again, separate questions. But as far as teachers, obviously one of the most important roles that anyone can have in our society is teaching the next generation. So we need to value our teachers. We need to pay them adequately, train them, and allow them to do their job. Again, I am against indoctrination of students, and I know plenty of teachers that feel they are forced to say and do things that go against what they believe. We need to allow teachers to teach. We need to get back to basics, but absolutely reward them because they're vital. Then you mentioned about healthcare workers, and obviously we do have a shortage pretty much at all levels of healthcare workers. I think there are some novel ways that we can go about incentivizing people to enter healthcare professions. We need to do that in terms of providing not free education, not free passes, but encouraging people to enter and then maybe pay back some extra, some loans, get some deferment on things if they stay with a certain hospital system or a certain part of the state. We certainly have an area, the rural areas in particular, having a hard time recruiting. We can work with bringing in assistant physicians. This is a whole nother thing, again, I could talk to you guys all evening about. They are physicians, and they preferentially go to rural areas. We can talk a lot more about that. Thank you.
All right, Missouri is very much a pro 2A state, you know, with guns and all. The nation has witnessed a lot of shootings, Buffalo, Uvalde, Parkland, just to name a few. Is there a standard or benchmark that would make sure that our responders are prepared as much as possible? We saw what happened in Uvalde, that some of them stood back and they did not go into that. And should something unthinkable happen right here in our state?
I don't know the standards that police and first responders are trained to. That's unfortunately a little bit out of my area. Certainly, my understanding was after what happened in Colorado many years ago, the original stance, which was to wait and go in later, changed to when you're there, you go in. So again, I certainly in no way want to quarterback this just, you know, from my armchair and say what was or wasn't done properly in Uvalde. But I was surprised. I think it's fair to say I was surprised at the delay in actually breaching the door and into the classroom and all. So obviously they're going to be doing thorough evaluations of that situation, learning additional lessons, because we do have some standards, and as different events occur, doing debriefings, figuring out what happened, the good, the bad, and unfortunately the ugly of situations, because those happen in real time. Those are real lives. People are making decisions on the fly, but they can be trained to certain standards that we have learned and have evolved over time. So I'm definitely for doing that and trying to maintain the highest standards, which in general, again, our police, law enforcement, first responders are superb, and I would put them up against anyone in the world. And if I'm in a crisis, that's who I want at my side coming to my aid.
Dr. Thomas, what makes you different than your opponent, and how will you approach the position for which you're running?
Well, at this point, I have the honor, really, of representing this district, or a portion of this district, for the past 2 years. So I've actually done the job. It's very humbling, and I think if you are at the point where you ever drive up to the Capitol and are not in awe of looking at that structure, realizing the history, and feeling a part of this just really amazing state and our government, then I think that's the day that you need to leave office. So every day I drive up there, and as I said, I just look at that Capitol. I'm still safely driving. Please don't think that I'm not. But it gives you that reverence. And so, again, I'm just humbled and honored to be able to do the job. I've met such amazing people, not just in the district, but around the state. I feel like I've been able to have an impact using my medical experience. I'm one of the few physicians in the House, and I feel it would be tragic if I didn't sit on committees where I could utilize that knowledge, help educate other people. And one of the most important things that a legislator does is not make legislation, actually. It is constituent services. As a psychiatrist, I feel like I have a special connection and am able to be empathic and help solve problems. It's been an honor to do that. And then on the legislative side, I feel that blocking bad bills is really my number one responsibility. And again, having the scientific knowledge to understand sometimes what's proposed that may sound like a good idea on the surface could be absolutely horrific if it got passed.
All right, Dr. Thomas, you have about 2 minutes to wrap things up and share some things on your heart.
Okay, well, I'm a lifelong Missourian, born and raised in St. Louis, ultimately moved out to Columbia, Missouri when I was going to medical school, went back and forth between Columbia and St. Louis. I created my own MD PhD program because there was wasn't one that matched what I wanted to do. Had the fortune to be able to do that, and ended up ultimately not finishing my PhD, but moving more into the psychiatry realm instead of the clinical psychology side. And again, graduating from medical school, becoming a psychiatrist, working with everything from children up to geriatrics. My most recent full-time clinical job was at the Veterans Hospital in Columbia. Absolutely have a heart for veterans. They again are a group that we can never do enough for because of their sacrifices. We have the lifestyle that we have today. So it was quite amazing to be able to sit in a room, meet a new patient, and say, again, good to meet you because of your sacrifice. As I said, we have our lifestyle. Now what can we do for you? And you can't say that in other settings. So many a time we covered everything from PTSD to substance abuse to depression, individuals that had lost limbs, certainly had watched horrible things happen, some who felt that they had committed horrible things. But an amazing experience. I will never forget all the veterans that I had the opportunity to work with. But then it turns out I was watching our liberties be eroded in the country, and I'd already been involved in politics at various levels, but thought, well, I'm feeling a pull to be more involved. So I had to decide, do I want to stay at the VA, and as a federal employee you have limits on how involved you can be politically, or do I want to jump in? So I wrestled with that, prayed about it. It was not an easy decision, but I decided to leave the VA, jumped full-time into politics. Because of that, was able to transition down to the lake. I was no longer working at a place you had to be half an hour from the hospital on call. And it looks like my time is up, but I just want to finish with, like so many people here at the lake, again, I was able to transition here, had owned my property for quite a while before moving down, and who wouldn't want to be here? It's beautiful. It's always a beautiful day at the lake. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Thomas. Well, you're watching and listening to the Candidate Forum on KRMS Radio and TV. We're going to be back with the candidates running for State Senator District 6 and State Senator District 16. So they're both going to be up on stage. We'll be right back.
Property damages, lost lives, horrible losses caused by floods can be minimized or prevented. DRIPS LLC believes the best way to prevent human suffering is through a fast and simple, stress-free barrier system. One 5-connected bag system replaces 750 regular sandbags and can be set up and filled in place by 2 men in less than 10 minutes. That's 200 times faster deploy than regular sandbags. Not only are our Big Bags USA barrier systems easy to lengthen and stack, but they conform to all types of terrain. Now is the time to implement a cost-saving, efficient deployment barrier plan and method. It's never too early to be prepared. Request a free quote today by calling 800-337-0537.
The convenience of it is what makes it awesome. Use about twice as much.
Had these touchless covers for about 3 years now. I have them on all 3 boats here on the dock.
We don't have to constantly clean spiders off of our boats.
I'm able to come out by myself, raise them up, put them back down. They've made all the difference for me.
What makes a great real estate professional? Experience? Maybe communication? Reliability? A 3-time President's Award winner and ranked #1 Century 21 professional in Missouri. Don't settle for average. Learn more at c21athelake.com.
I'm Wade Covington, and I approve this message.
For the foundation contracting services you need, count on the name you can trust when you choose the team at Foundation Recovery Services. Let our team of dedicated professionals provide the service and high-quality workmanship you deserve when it comes to your recovery needs. We specialize in basement waterproofing, foundation repair, concrete repair, egress window and ventilation, and more. Give us a call today or visit us online to learn more information.
Welcome back to the 2022 Candidate Forum, being simulcast on News Talk KRMS Radio and KRMS TV 32, streaming on KRMSradio.com, KRMS32.com. All right, now we have the candidates running for the same office, but in two different districts, and here in the state of Missouri. So we have State Senator District number 6, Scott Rydell, and State Senator District 16, Susie Pollack. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
And you'll each get a 2-minute opening statement. Mr. Rydell, you're first.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you so much for having me this evening. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Just real fast, I want to go and introduce myself a little bit and give you a little background. I am a man of integrity, and word for me is everything. I'm an Eagle Scout, and an Eagle Scout is trustworthy according to the first tenet of the Scout Law. I'm a graduate of the Citadel, and it's called the West Point of the South from Charleston, South Carolina. And we believe in a code. They teach you a code, and they teach you that all cadets, you cannot lie, cheat, steal, nor tolerate those who do. And also, I did 31 years in the Army. I did 2 combat tours in Iraq. Wow. I earned the Combat Action Badge and 2 Bronze Stars. I really paid my price, and my last 19 years of my 31 years in the Army, I served as an Army chaplain, and I really enjoyed that. I'm married. I've been married for 25 years, and we have 2 boys that are teenage boys. I'm all about Eagle, and my boys have joined me, and now they're Eagle Scouts as well. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the incumbent's voting record. I am totally opposite of his voting record. He says one thing, and he does another thing, and he says it here in his push card. He has used our tax dollars to fund Planned Parenthood. He has voted for men to play in girls' sports. He has voted for critical race theory to be taught in our public universities. He has even voted for the gas tax. That is the largest tax increase in Missouri's history. And last, he received $10,000 of blood money from the Right Path Political Action Committee that represents Washington University. And what they do is they have advocated abortion, cloning, and they take stem cells from aborted babies and they use it, they sell it.
Okay, Ms. Pollack.
Yes.
Your opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you very much for giving us this opportunity to present to our community. Thank you for everyone watching, and thank you for those present. I am Susie Pollack, running for Senate District 16. I have been a state representative for the 123rd District, which is half of Camden County and half of Laclede County. I have served honorably for 4 years. I'm very proud of my voting record. I have a very wonderful husband, Darrell Pollack, who served before me from 2004 to 2012 as a conservative Republican. I have 2 children, and they have given me 2 of the most beautiful granddaughters in all the world. I'm a Christian. I attend Canopy Church in Lynn Creek here in Camden County, and been a member there for many years. Work with the children there, and I have been in healthcare for 26 years. I'm a registered cardiovascular invasive specialist, so that includes working in the cardiac cath lab and vascular surgery, and enjoy that very much. But like many of you, I got very frustrated with healthcare and all the regulations. The average doctor only gets to spend 17 minutes with his patients nowadays. We have a federal government system that Medicare, Medicaid dictates everything a doctor is able to do nowadays. And if we put a catheter in somebody's heart, we shouldn't have to document it in 4 places. So we need less government, we need less regulations, and more freedoms. And I have fought for those freedoms for 4 years and will continue to do that as your senator.
Let's go to question number 1, and Ms. Pollack, we'll stay with you. Let's break down the issues that Missourians care about. Missourians being one of the top ag states in the country and will bring in huge dollars in ag tourism. What is your view on the issue and aiding in bringing in more ag tourism dollars to the state and more specifically the Lake region?
Well, my husband and I have a cow-calf operation, so I love farming and agriculture. I was born on a farm in Kentucky. My dad was very multifaceted in his approach to farming, and I grew up on raising tobacco. And if you know anything about tobacco, it is a very hard crop to raise with very much all manual labor. So ag tourism and agriculture are very important to our community. I fully support it and will continue to throughout my time in the Senate.
Mr. Rydell, let's break down the issues that Missourians care about. Missouri being one of the top ag states in the country and will bring in huge dollars in ag tourism and agriculture. What is your view on the issue and aiding in bringing in more ag tourism dollars to the state and more specifically the Lake region?
I think what we ought to do is continue what we're doing with the 4-H clubs. I think we continue that in our schools, and I think we promote it more. I think we can have interaction with not only within the state, with other states, and promote that. I think it's great that I received 2 letters recently from one child that wants me to buy his chickens, and another one wants me to buy his hogs and everything. I think it's fantastic. I'll be replying to both of them, but we need to go and get our children involved, and I think the 4-H club is how you do it, and that brings in tourism. It's like we have over here down the road here near Max Creek. We've got those diamonds where they go and play baseball and all. Well, why can't we have something national like that here with farming? And we can have some great shows and everything in that area or in some other area within the Lake region, and we can bring in farmers, and we can have crafts, and we can bring the tractors, and we can bring all of that in and have the children the center of it all. And I think that would bring in a lot of tourism here in the state. And I think the businesses around here would help me out a whole lot. I mean, we're talking about the lake, and the lake knows how to put it on. So I would work with the businesses, get their ideas and their opinions and their views, and then we would go and put on a show that no one would ever forget.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rydell and Ms. Pollock. Okay, next question. There's been a lot of money voted on by the Congress of the United States for infrastructure and addressed by the state. With that in mind, let's address the issue of broadband internet. And in addition, how can you allocate money and dollars to the local level by helping the counties deal with infrastructure, roads, bridges, etc.? Mr. Rydell.
Okay, well, that's a broad question there about bringing monies and everything. I think before we can go and release any funds or anything to the local area, I think we first need to work on our budget at the state. Right now, we have an abundant amount of funds. Last year, our budget was $35 billion. This year, our budget is $47.5 billion. $4.5 billion of that was from the federal government. The rest was general funds. Where did that money go? We could really go and increase our roads and bridges instead of taxing us. That's why I'm all for repealing the gas tax. Let's use those funds, and we can really help our communities with those extra funds instead of, I just don't know where that went to. I think also we could bring in an audit team from the outside, somebody that has integrity, and they should go and check our budget out. Go ahead and check our budget. And what we do is we say, okay, don't touch our must-haves, but you can go ahead and tell us look at our entire budget and tell us what we can go and totally eliminate and what we can cut out. And then we can go and also, I'm sure they will find something in our budget, because we had a study 3 years ago called the McGregor audit, and they found $1 billion of waste. I don't see why we won't find more waste now, and we can use those extra funds for the local areas.
All right, same question to you, Ms. Pollock. There's been money voted on by the Congress of the United States for infrastructure and addressed by the state. With that in mind, address the issue of broadband internet and the addition. How can you help allocate monies and dollars at the local level to the counties in helping them deal with infrastructure, roads, bridges, etc.?
Thank you for the question. We have been working for 4 years on broadband. We received grants from the federal government that I got to take and welcome them in Stoutland, and it expanded into Laclede County, which is fabulous. It's a very, very complex issue. The cables are not really feasible, and expanding broadband to our rural areas are not financially beneficial to any of the companies that could do it privately. And so the state has taken a special committee, and we have looked at it, and we had problems with mapping and all different types of things. And so these are very, very complex issues that actually term limits kind of hurt, because the people that get so start really figuring it out sometimes are term limited by the time they get that figured out, but we need term limits federally. But anyhow, we're working on it, and we'll continue to work on that, and we've made great strides with expanding infrastructure and broadband. But I did vote no on the gas tax because we do have all that federal money, and I think it was a terrible thing to go against the will of the people.
Ms. Pollock, what is one of your pet peeves of how legislation works and doesn't work in Jeff City?
Oh, that's a great one. I hate the last 2 weeks of session. Session starts, it takes too long to get bills assigned to committee, and then we get committee hearings and they drag out, and then the last 2 weeks everybody rushes. And we had one bill this year that they put 200 amendments on. One bill. That is not good legislation. We need single subject bills, and we need to work on them. We need to focus our priorities according to what the people want, not the lobbyists or special interest in Jefferson City, and focus on those priorities, work together, because as a legislator, many times I would say to drafting, I want to draft this legislation, but I would like to know what other legislators are working on this same legislation. And they said, I can't tell you that. And so that's ridiculous that we have 163 representatives, and it's like every one of them work in their own silo. So when I run for Senate, when I get into the Senate, I want to work with my fellow legislators and really work on our key issues together and form legislation together so that we can get it passed more successfully than in the last 2 weeks.
Mr. Rydell, what is one of your pet peeves of how the legislation works or doesn't work in Jeff City?
This is what I see real fast from the outside. I don't have the experience of my fellow friend here, Susie Pollock. I've not been up there at the Capitol, but I can tell you what I see from the outside. I see three parties. I don't see two parties. I see a Republican Party that abides by the Republican Party platform. I see another party that votes with the Democrats, and I see a party that are the Democrats. And this past session really didn't work, and I wish the governor had called a special session and dealt with the 7162, the congressional issue, but he did not. And so what we have is we have a lot of fighting, a lot of bickering going on. This is what I think we ought to do, especially with the Republicans. We need to go and have them go, and I think they should be required to read the Republican Party platform and sign a statement that they've read it. And then afterwards, we need a joint committee between the House and between the Senate, and we need to work together. We don't work together. And I think they need to score every proposed bill that's before everybody from 1 to 5. 1 meaning the furthest away from the Republican Party platform, and 5 meaning spot on. Then once they go and score all this, then what they do is they go and they can prioritize what they're going to do in legislation for that upcoming session. And then instead of governing by politics, we govern by principle.
All right, Mr. Rydell, we'll stick with you. This is an outgrowth of a question that arose in my radio show. In light of what occurred during the past 2 years of the pandemic, in what ways would you consider developing a FEMA-like warehouse backup for like baby formula and basic essential needs that Missourians have? Because when that happened, shelves were empty. Mr. Rydell.
I think I've dealt with FEMA before. We call them NGOs in the military, and I think that's a great idea, but I think we should do it locally. I don't think we need to utilize the government. I don't see why we can't do it. Why do we have to go and depend on the federal government? We can do this ourselves. We have enough people here. We have the National Guard. Why can't we utilize our National Guard? Why can't they do it? Why do we have to bring FEMA in to do this? I mean, we always state all the time we're a state, a sovereign state and everything. Then why don't we start acting like a sovereign state and take care of ourselves? We don't always have to call on FEMA for everything and for them to rescue us. We can rescue our own selves, and we can do it our own selves. We have the know-how, we have the intelligence, we have the education, and we have the resources. Let us do it ourselves and take care of ourselves.
Okay, same question to you, Ms. Pollock. In what ways would you consider developing a FEMA-like, so maybe it wasn't necessarily FEMA, like a warehouse backup for like baby formula, because shelves were empty and people needed that formula and other basic needs for Missourians?
Yes. I think the whole baby formula problem could have been avoided if we didn't have too many government over-regulations. We need to plan for the future. We need to plan for the what-ifs, and I think a FEMA-like thing would be very good. I've worked with our Office of Emergency Management, and they do some of that, and it could definitely be expanded. I went and spoke a couple weeks ago to a preppers group, and they have a lot of great ideas, and I found out where to go if something does happen. So we have to be better prepared for things like this, and people don't need to freak out and empty the shelves, and we need to be calm and prepared and plan ahead. So I would support that idea.
You've already answered that question, haven't you, Mr. Rydell?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's go to this. Ms. Pollock, you've heard the phrase, make a difference. How will you make a difference in Jeff City?
Well, the same way I tried to make a difference as a state representative. Constituent services is so huge. You know, I served 37,000 people as a representative, and it's going to be 350,000 as a senator, and so I will take care of my people. You know, working in healthcare for 26 years, I know how to take care of people. I know how to listen. I know how to engage people's problems and problem solve. And so I do that in the legislation I file. I do that working on committees. Committee work can never be underestimated. We do some great things in committees that never have our name on it, and I'm not self-seeking in this office. It's a community effort. Anytime a politician gets up here and says, no politician ever does anything alone. We all have to work together, and we have to focus on our goals, and that's what I'll continue to do as a senator.
Make a difference. How will you make a difference in Jeff City, Mr. Rydell?
Well, I tell you what, I'll work up there, but I really don't intend on staying up there. I'm going to do something different, and I've observed, and I've looked, and I want to do something totally out of the box, and that's who I am. What I intend on doing is leaving Jeff City during session on Friday. I found out all the legislators are off Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I'm going out to my counties, and I'm going to go and have town hall meetings. And I've already got the times, and we're going to meet in the evenings, and I'm going to go and talk to the people, and I'm going to tell them what is happening at the Capitol. They don't have to look at my Facebook. They don't have to look at my website. They can see me and shake my hands, and they can talk to me there. And I can tell them where their bills are, because they're going to write the bills, and I'm going to make sure that they do that, because they're the subject matter experts. And then I'm going to answer their questions. I'm going to take all their questions, and if I don't have an answer, then I'll get back with them within a week. And I'm going to do something that's novel. I'm going to ask them, how can I help you? And then my staff and I are going to work our ever-ready tails to try to take care of them, because that's what we're supposed to do, aren't we? You're our bosses. I'm not the boss up there. You're the boss. And when you come up there and come visit me, you're going to come to your office, because it's not my office. And if the door is slightly closed, I'll have a big sign saying, come on into your office. And we will greet you, and we will talk to you, and we will smile, and I will stand up and get up out of my chair to come see you. You will not have to come see me. And we will talk and have a good time.
All right, Mr. Rydell, the grain belt, and I've talked about this before with a past candidate or so, but Missouri is smack in the middle of it, with the United States government wanting to go green and push for alternative forms of energy. But what is your view on the Grain Belt Initiative?
On the Grain Belt Initiative, I don't know too much about that. I'm not really big on the green. I think the big problem right now, I don't know too much on that, and I won't say that I do. I don't. But I can go and talk about being green. Right now, we have to know whether we can have the capacity, reliability, and the cost, whether we can go green or not. It's so easy to say, let's do that. But can wind power, can hydro, can the solar, can it hold the capacity to give us what we need to heat our houses, to go and give us AC during the summer months? And Lord knows we sure need it this year. Is it reliable? Can it go and handle a load of people coming in? We've got a lot of people moving into Missouri, and and can it hold that? Or do we stay with coal? Do we stay with what we have that is really good? Will it be as cheap, or if not cheaper, if we go the green route? I don't know that we can. Right now, we have the most coal in the world. We have the most gas in the world. We have the most natural gas in the world. We have as much oil as Saudi Arabia. Why can't we continue still using that? Do we really have to go green? Why can't we just use it as another alternative resource that we have on hand?
All right, Ms. Pollock, the Grain Belt of Missouri smack in the middle of that, and with the United States government wanting to go green and push for alternative forms of energy, though. But what is your view on that Green Belt project?
I disagree with the program, because it took away property rights and farmers' rights, and people that have bought and paid for property and paid the taxes and live here in Missouri as a choice. And we can't just take people's property away from them for the Green New Deal. We can be smart and work together, but the property value must be the priority. Some of these are century farms that have been in families for generations upon generations, and there's no government that should ever take that away. There's no big company that should ever take that away. There has to be a way for them to be properly compensated and work together if they're willing to. And if not, then go around them and do your own thing, and don't make Missouri just a flyover state. Respect us and respect our property rights.
All right. You each have 2 minutes, Ms. Pollock.
Thank you. And thank you again for having us. I'm delighted to be here. I'm kind of disappointed that my opponent wasn't here. This is still his district until December 31st, and you all deserve to see him here and answer the questions. We have a very distinct difference between Justin Brown and Susie Pollock. You have a great choice in front of you this time. Our voting records are completely opposite, even though we both run and file as Republicans. I have pledged the platform. I've pledged to not raise your taxes. Today I received the endorsement for Gun Owners of America, and I'm so proud of that, because our Second Amendment rights are so important, especially with our terrible administration at the federal level. And I will never miss an opportunity to talk to the people of the 16th district or my current district, I'm always available. I'm always willing to listen. I will return your emails. I will return your phone calls. I have an open door policy. I have been a consistent conservative advocate for Missouri citizens, and I will continue that in the Senate. I can't be bought by lobbyists and special interest. I've never taken money for a vote. You know, anybody that wants to know the truth on who to vote for, always follow the money. Go to Missouri Ethics Commission and look at my donors, and you'll see people's first and last names. You look at my opponents' donations, and you will see corporation and PACs and dirty money from the Right Path PAC, and the evidence is out there. If you want a true conservative to serve you, that's Susie Pollock. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rydell, your final comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Why am I qualified to be your state senator? I'm educated. I've got a bachelor's degree from the Citadel, and I also have a master's degree, and I've graduated from the highest of colleges in the military. I have leadership. I started out my career as a second lieutenant. I've always been an officer and always been a leader for 31 years. I was a platoon leader twice. I was a battery commander. I was head of officer in charge of command and control operations for a brigade. I know how to lead, and I'm pretty good at it. I know how to motivate people to do things that they would normally never do. And I can work with all kinds of groups of people, different ethnicities, different backgrounds, viewpoints, education, and all. And I know how to motivate them to make it happen. And so I think that's the same thing we need to do when we go and try to pass a bill. How we have to work all together. And so I'm good at it, so let's do it. Let's go ahead and get that bill across so that we can go and take care of our people. And I've lived all over the world. I've lived in 3 countries, 9 states, worked in 20 countries. I've lived in every state. I've gone to every state in the Union except for 3. And I fought in Iraq for 2 combat tours with a cavalry unit and an infantry unit. And I learned one thing with both those units. We didn't run from a battle. We ran to the battle. And then we took care of business because we're Americans. And we don't give up, we don't give in, and we never quit. And I will stand for the Republican Party platform. I will stand for you. And I will be your voice in the Capitol. I don't want to be your state senator. I want to be your state servant. I want to serve the people and be their representative.
Thank you very much. You're watching and listening to the Candidates Forum here on KRMS Radio and TV. We'll be back with the candidates running for the United States Congressional Representatives for Missouri District 4. We'll be back.
The convenience of it is what makes it awesome. Use about twice as much.
Had these touchless covers for about 3 years now. I have them on all 3 boats here on the dock.
We don't have to constantly clean spiders off of our boats.
I'm able to come out by myself, raise them up, put them back down. They've made all the difference for me.
Stop scrubbing your body for heaven's sakes. Just stop by and see us. Econolift at the lake.
Econolift uses only the highest quality materials, completely galvanized metal parts, and totally enclosed polyethylene tanks for more stability in high traffic water. Made with 100% virgin plastic, not recycled plastic that could weaken your tanks. And they're backed by a lifetime warranty. That's why Econolift is the most dependable yet affordable boat hoist available today.
Econolift at the lake.
What makes a great real estate professional? Experience? Maybe communication? Reliability? A 3-time President's Award winner and ranked #1 Century 21 professional in Missouri. Don't settle for average. Learn more at c21athelake.com.
I'm Wade Covington, and I approve this message.
Property damages, lost lives, horrible losses caused by floods can be minimized or prevented. DRIPS LLC believes the best way to prevent human suffering is through a fast and simple, stress-free barrier system. One 5-connected bag system replaces 750 regular sandbags and can be set up and filled in place by 2 men in less than 10 minutes. That's 200 times faster deploy than regular sandbags. Not only are our Big Bags USA barrier systems easy to lengthen and stack, but they conform to all types of terrain. Now is the time to implement a cost-saving, efficient deployment barrier plan and method. It's never too early to be prepared. Request a free quote today by calling 800-337-0537.
Welcome back to the 2022 Candidates Forum, being simulcast on News Talk KRMS Radio and KRMS TV 32, streaming on KRMSradio.com, KRMSTV32.com, and the KRMS Facebook page. Talking now with the people running for the seat in the United States Congressional Representative District, Missouri District Number 4. Let's welcome Bill Irwin, Taylor Burks, and Kyle LeBrew. Okay, Tony. You each have 2 minutes. Go ahead, Bill, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I am Bill Irwin. I'm a retired United States Navy SEAL, combat war veteran. Had 33 years in the United States Navy. I'm a retired Lee Summit police officer. I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm a graduate of the University of Missouri. And first and foremost, what you need to make your decision making on, how I'll make my decision making, is I believe that this book, the Bible, is the infallible, inerrant Word of God. And that's me. I'm running for Congress because I love my country and I'm worried about it. I've lost brothers and sisters in this war, in the wars we've had, so it's personal for me. I am the only combat war veteran in this race with boots on the ground in Afghanistan, Iraq, and Pakistan. We must change course to save America. I've served globally. I've served in every continent of the world except for Antarctica. My life has been that of a public servant and a warfighter. I'm a strategic planner. I have a master's degree from the United States Naval War College in National Security Strategy. I'm a team builder. They call it SEAL teams and SWAT teams. I can put together groups of the smartest people and come up with a direction. And I am a decisive executor. Politicians have failed us, and our country is suffering. I have a platform that I've written down for you in detail at irwinforcongress.com so you can hold me accountable for what I say. I have a mission, and it's you. Failure is not an option. We will fight. We will win. Let's save America. Send in the SEAL. Now, some say I'm very intense. Let me give you the dichotomy of me. Yes, I was a Mizzou cheerleader, and I was the Mizzou Tiger, M-I-Z.
All right. Taylor Burks, you have 2 minutes.
Hey, thanks for having me. Great to be here tonight. My name is Taylor Burks. I'm a fifth-generation farm kid. Grew up down in the Ozarks on my family's farm where we raised cattle. I'm a 15-year Navy veteran, and I'm the only Republican to serve as Boone County's clerk in our 200-year history. In 2020, I deployed for the third time overseas to the Middle East. I was a part of President Trump's plan to withdraw our troops from Iraq and Syria. I'm a lieutenant commander in the United States Navy Reserves, and I saw overseas the value of an America First foreign policy, where when we put America and our values and our lives ahead of the interests across the globe, we make the world a far safer place. While I was overseas in 2020, my wife's a public school teacher. She and our 3 little boys were stuck here at home facing pandemic-era politics where our churches, our businesses, anything you could think of was shut down in the name of government, in the name of, quote, science. Came home and saw the world was changing a lot after the 2020 election and realized that God had put me in a lot of different experiences to talk about the things that are facing our country. When you talk about the things that are important to Missouri's 4th District, agriculture is our #1 industry. And as I said, I grew up on my family's farm. When we talk about the globe and the dangers that we face today, 15 years experience as a supply chain, as a logistician for the United States Navy, is experience that we need to deal with the inflation and the crisis that we see with our supply chains. And when you talk about election integrity, the number one issue for conservative voters this cycle, election integrity. I'm the only candidate for Congress in the country running for an open seat who's run an elections office, who knows what it means to test ballots, to train poll workers, to do a post-election audit. And if we're concerned about the future of our republic and what we pass down to my kids or your kids or just our own generation, I'm the guy who's done enough stuff to go to Washington, D.C. and call BS when I see it and serve the 4th District.
Mr. LeBrew.
Pleasure to be here tonight. It's a pleasure to be in my hometown, actually. And that's who I am. I'm a small town guy, and I'm a business owner. I'm not a career politician. And the greatest title that I've ever held is husband and father. And that's why I'm involved. I am tired of other people making awful decisions for my family. I look around the world today, I look around America, and I see a different America than I grew up with. And I want to be a difference. I want to be somebody that gets in and makes things change. And we can't do that with the same as old. You know, we can't just keep electing these career politicians and hoping that things will change. We need people that understand what the average American's going through, and that's who I am. I started my business in 2008. I'm a developer, for those of you that don't know. So I had to work through some of the toughest times that I've ever seen in this country to be able to make my business successful. I had to change. I had to adapt. And I believe that it takes leadership like that that we need right now in America, not later on. Whenever I go out and I talk to people face to face, the one thing they ask me is, what are you going to do for me, Kyle? What are you going to do for me? You know what the number one issue is for them when I talk to them? How are you going to help gas prices come down? We have to get involved in that right away. We need people that understand that pain, and I'm that guy. There's no mailbox money for me. I make my money every week, and that's why I am the small town guy and business only. Thank you for your time.
All right, Tony.
Mr. Irwin, there have been 2 million illegal border crossing attempts since President Biden was sworn in, yet his administration refuses to implement policies that would deter illegal immigrants from coming into our country. The Department of Homeland Security expects as many as 18,000 migrants per day to attempt to cross our southern border. What would you do to secure our border?
Thank you. I love that question. I love it because I actually wrote a white paper at the Naval War College on this very issue, illegal immigrants in our country. First, we need to secure that border. We bought the material, and when I was in the Naval Reserves, we actually went down to the border in a combined joint exercise, actually just joint exercise, and we secured the border using Marines, using Army personnel, using Coast Guard, and we secured a section of that border. And that was free money because we were on AT. And with that, we can save taxpayer dollars, and we can keep the illegal drugs, the fentanyl coming across, the sex trade trafficking of young girls coming across an open border. We also own the fencing that's just sitting there getting rusted. I'd go back to President Trump's initiatives of securing the border, hold Mexico accountable, and what happens also is our law enforcement officers, with all these illegals coming in the country, they have a problem. They can't handle that overload. We need to help them and secure the borders, and anybody that's here illegally has to go home.
Mr. Burks, there have been 2 million illegal border crossing attempts since President Biden was sworn in, yet his administration refuses to implement policies that would deter illegal immigrants from coming into our country. The Department of Homeland Security expects as many as 18,000 migrants per day to attempt to cross our southern border. What would you do, or what do you believe should be done to secure the border?
Yeah, it's not rocket science, and I think that we've seen a lack of willpower in Washington, D.C. to resolve a crisis. You hear a lot of people who run for office, even Democrats, who for decades would run for office on securing the border, and they never did anything. And President Trump was the one who got excoriated, attacked for saying build a wall, and that was the only thing he said, and everyone called him racist and said this is going to be a disaster for the country. What we lack, as I said from the beginning, is willpower from our political leaders to go to Washington, D.C. and do what we know everyone here thinks, and that's build the wall. The other problem is we have conservatives that we send to Washington, D.C., and they immediately start negotiating away immigration policy in order to get the wall. I've taken the stance that we won't discuss any immigration policy until we build the wall. The build the wall is a standalone bill that we have to pass in Congress, and after that, Republicans and Democrats can figure out a crisis that's brewing. Make no mistake, this is also a political decision. We hired some landscapers for a house that we were building while I was deployed. Our landscaper said that it was going to be 6 months delayed because they normally get visas from the Department of Labor to bring in migrant workers. But under President Biden, they cut those visas in half. The Border Patrol was overwhelmed at the border and couldn't process legitimate people coming here. This is a crisis that Democrats have created to stall the country, and we need people who are willing to say enough.
Mr. LeBrew, there have been 2 million illegal border crossing attempts since President Biden was sworn in, yet his administration refuses to implement policies that would deter illegal immigrants from coming to our country. The Department of Homeland Security expects as many as 18,000 migrants per day to attempt to cross our southern border. What do you believe should be done to secure the border?
I think it's easy to think about. You know, there isn't another nation in the world that doesn't have sovereignty. You know, we have to have our borders to have sovereignty. And, you know, I don't want to beat a dead horse. We do have to build the wall. Everybody has said we got to build the wall, and we got to build it right away. But we need to also support our border agents. We need to increase their funds. We need to increase the technology. We have so much new technology nowadays with drones. We're seeing technology, the drone technology is very effective in other countries. We're seeing that on the world stage. We can implement drone technology. We can implement other technologies that we have right now. And that way, even though we're short-staffed at the border, like Bill was saying, we can increase their reach and we can increase their ability to patrol. So yes, we have to secure our border, and then we have to figure out a way to pass legislation to get immigration under control. Because Taylor just said, we have a president right now that doesn't care about the problem. He just keeps pushing it aside because he's scared to be vilified. This isn't a racist thing. We have to secure our border because we are a nation of laws and rules and a federal government.
All right, we're going to start this time with you, Mr. Burks. Gas prices have soared to record highs under this current administration. Prices are up almost 60% since this time last year. Prices are a drag on the economy and are hurting the American people. What steps are necessary to lower the prices at the pump?
I appreciate this question. Somewhat uniquely, in my experience for the United States Navy, I'm a fuels officer, and so I've handled storage and distribution for fuel to keep our aircraft in the sky, our ships powered at sea. Anything you put fuel in, I've handled that for the United States military. We do not have a resource problem in this country. We have a government problem in this country, and you'll be shocked to learn that the United States could be energy independent if our government so choose. We here in this country, voters, believe that President Trump's policy, and even before him, President Bush, moved us toward energy independence. We have an administration that's taken every step they could to try to reorient society in their image, where government is the decider of how we should power our cars or how we should power our communities. We need to relax restrictions so that we can access our natural resources here in this country. We are the Saudi Arabia of natural gas. We are the Saudi Arabia of coal coal, and we have as many proven oil reserves, crude oil reserves, as any other country on this planet. We can't access it because of crazy far-left policies coming out of Washington, D.C. We also have to be concerned about our cybersecurity for this infrastructure. We saw last year hacks from our foreign enemies that took down Colonial Pipeline. These are things that are going to be increasingly targeted by our enemies abroad that this administration is also not doing enough to protect. I'm the candidate for Congress who knows these things, can go to Washington, D.C. and stop this nonsense.
Mr. LeBrew, the same question to you. Gas prices have soared to record highs under the current administration, and prices are almost up 60% since this time last year. These prices are a drag on the economy and are hurting the American people. What steps are necessary to lower the prices at the pump?
So we have a president right now that the first thing he did when he got in office was shut down all of our leases and shut down our pipeline project. It's a direct reflection of this red tape that he's put in place. So we need to turn that back immediately, not tomorrow, not the next day, today. The American people are tired of politicians promising one thing after another, and then never delivering. So for me, whenever I'm out here in the district talking to people, that's what they're saying. The number one issue for them is gas, because gas gets them to work. Gas gets them, it brings the price of their food down if gas is more affordable. It touches every aspect of their life. So we have to drill right away. We have to, I'm an American first candidate. So I think it's ridiculous that America is going over to another country, squabbling and begging for 50 cents on the gallon. It's actually embarrassing, and I don't think there's any American right now that is proud of that moment. We've got to invest in American infrastructure and invest in American gas, and we've got to do it right now.
All right, Mr. Irwin, same question. Gas prices soared to record highs under the current administration, and prices are up almost 60% since this time last year. These prices are a drag on the economy and hurting the American people. What steps are necessary to lower the prices at the pump?
I think we understated when they say they're hurting American people. They haven't even begun to feel it yet. As these gas prices go up, they impact our farmers and our cattlemen and their ability to grow crops, to fertilize, to cut the crops, and to grow cattle, basically growing the four-legged beast. It's going to drive inflation up, which is a major problem right now. It's going to drive food costs up, and in February, when you want heat, it's going to drive that up. Where's the power coming from? We need to drill right away. Drill, baby, drill. We need to open the pipeline, and we also need to relax all the stuff the federal government and the state governments are putting on industries. We need to build another refinery. Why do we have old technology? Build that refinery, drill, baby, drill. Let's get our United States of America energy policies back in place, and do not release our strategic oil reserves to foreign countries. Are you kidding? What kind of president would do that to our country?
Crime is out of control throughout the country. Woke district attorneys are putting criminals back on the street to commit these crimes again, while liberals are calling for defunding the police. What can Congress do to ensure Americans are safe to live their lives in peace? Mr. LeBrew.
Well, it's really simple. You cannot rely on somebody for your safety. Your Second Amendment rights have to be right up first and foremost the importance of those people that you elect. And for me, I believe our Second Amendment protects all the rest of our rights. And we have to keep our Second Amendment strong and our Second Amendment privileges and rights strong. Because if you're relying on a response of an officer and he can't be there, we already saw how that goes down in our recent tragedy in the school. It took a brave American to go there and make something happen to save lives. Also, the other day in the mall with a young law-abiding gun owner, he stopped somebody. He stopped multiple people from dying because he was carrying a firearm legally. So we have to support our law enforcement, but we also have to protect our families with our own rights that we have. You know, if you look at the Constitution, it wasn't just for hunting. They had just had military people invade their houses. They knew the Second Amendment was important, because they knew that they had to be able to protect all of their rights.
Mr. Irwin, crime is out of control throughout the country. Woke district attorneys are putting criminals back on the street to commit these crimes again, while liberals are calling for defunding the police. What can Congress do to ensure Americans are safe to live their lives in peace?
I agree with Kyle on the Second Amendment, but I think it goes deeper too. We need to back the blue. We need to recruit, train, and retain the best police officers we can possibly get. We need to take the targets off their back that were put there by President Obama. Thank you, sir. Freudian slip. That were put on their backs, and they were targeted. And there are more officers getting assassinated, and criminals are not being held accountable. And that goes back to the prosecutors. Woke prosecutors are going after cops rather than the criminals. Unbelievable. And we need to be able to let the blue take off the gloves. They're right now worried about their families and going to jail if they go out and try to enforce the law. Let's let them take the gloves off, back the blue, process and put criminals in jail, and hold them there if they're bad guys. And then mental health is a huge part of that too. We need to see that mental health gets looked at again, because a lot of these people have a problem, and when they get red flags or something on them that's actually a mental health problem, we need to be able to secure them and get them the help they need.
Crime is out of control throughout the country.
I'm good with the question. I can go ahead and answer. I appreciate Kyle's perspective on the Second Amendment. That's absolutely right. And I appreciate Bill's experience in law enforcement. I grew up, my stepdad, when I was a kid, was in law enforcement. I actually went to college. My degree's in criminal justice. Thought I wanted to go into law enforcement. Ultimately joined the Navy instead, and now doing this and having a chance to talk about my experiences that way. The reality is, and this is the tough political question, most criminal law is not at the federal level. And what you're going to get is a lot of people saying, I promise to go to Congress and fix your local or your state issue. I'm one of the guys who's going to say, hey, you can have the best idea in the world, but if it belongs at your state or local level, I don't want to take it to Washington, D.C. Here's the other thing, though. All of these places are very liberal places in this country, and we recognize the failures of these liberal policies. I'm happy to talk about that, but they also are the first to have their hands out to get federal money. And so I think that Congress ought to be doing something. If they want to defund the police, we need to defund those local administrations, those local governments that want to take, and not defend the American citizens in those communities.
This is not a question on our sheet, but it deals with what you've been talking about, because you're going to be going to Washington, D.C., and China is in the news. And will you have the will, and Bill, you're going to get the question first, will you have the will to go after China, because we heard about maybe suing them for the virus. We heard about what is going on and that Biden is lenient on China. Do you have the will to go after China?
Most definitely. I've been all over the world, and we've been standing against the Chinese. The Chinese right now are probably the greatest threat, other than our debt, the greatest outside threat. They are taking up property. They are building bases. They're buying land here in America. They are doing insurgency operations against the United States of America and our government. We saw this. We stood against them in communism in World War II, when we pushed back the Russians. The Chinese kept growing. They're building forts. We pushed against them in Korea and Vietnam, and we lacked the willpower to continue on. So we still have those war fronts. However, now Vietnam is turning into a capitalist nation. Go figure. But China's a real problem. The Spratly Island chain, wow, they built bases there that they can fly and attack our fleet if they try to take Taiwan. This is a huge problem.
Okay, Taylor, you're going to get the same question. Do you have the will to go after China? We know about the virus and that they've created things, and that we know that President Biden has been lenient on China. Do you have the will to go after them?
Yeah, I appreciate this question, because I think that Bill and I, having served overseas, have demonstrated our willingness to put our own lives on the line. Bill in extremely dangerous places. My very first deployment, I was on a cruiser off the Horn of Africa, and all the time time, we would encounter Chinese warships, and Bill, I think, did some security work off the Horn of Africa as well. The Chinese abuse and optimize their relationship with the rest of the world to take. And those of us who've been overseas and served this country know their number. We know what China's like, and we know when we get to Washington, D.C., we can't be snowed by people who say, well, this is a good idea to allow China to do this, or let's negotiate with that. We actually have a candidate in this race, chose not to be here tonight, but voted as a career politician in the Missouri legislature to allow Chinese investment in this state. As people who've been overseas, as people who've put our lives on the line for this country, we know where that line is, are willing to stand for it and defend it, and do that even when it's tough, even when we're in Washington, D.C., even when the lobbyists or consultants are telling you the right political thing to do. But the actual right thing to do for our national defense is to hold the line with China, and Bill and I have done that.
Mr. LeBrew, same question. With China, are you willing to hold the line in China once you get to Washington, D.C.? You know what they've done with the virus. We know how lenient the Biden administration is on China. Will you hold the line against China?
I think I feel this question deeper than anybody else on the stage tonight. Last year, my brother Weston died from COVID. And I see a room full of attorneys, and I would gladly love to sue the Chinese government, the Wuhan laboratories, Fauci. If any of you guys have the guts to do it, come meet me after this and we'll do it. I've reached out to plenty of attorneys, and most of them won't touch it because they're afraid. I'm not afraid of the Chinese government. As a matter of fact, I'm sick and tired of the Chinese government trying to take over our country. The greatest country in the world is America because it offers freedom. China is just one big slave ship, basically. All we do is ship jobs over there because that's what they have. They have sweatshops. Most of our politicians are bought up by the Chinese. Our athletes are bought up by the Chinese. We have to at some point say we're not going to embrace this. And so the simple answer to your question is I will fight China with every breath that I have because I feel the loss of a family member, and I feel it deeply. I promise you, if you elect me, I will go after China.
Mr. Burks, inflation is closing in on 10%. Supply chains are broken. New cars are being sold without computer chips. Interest rates are rising. If the Republicans can return to the majority in November, what can they do to bring stability to the economy?
Yeah. A supply chain question for the supply chain professional. I appreciate the chance to answer this first. We are witnessing 2 or 3 years now of disruptions of a huge magnitude, and we don't even know where and why it's happening. We do. I mean, just loosely, we know the government's responsible for every problem that we're seeing in our supply chains. But unprecedentedly, we're seeing it either at ports or transportation or warehousing or energy distribution. Different areas of our supply chain are being impacted in different ways, not necessarily by, somebody driving the hand of government behind it, but because of a complete lack of leadership on what makes America great and what are the things that we have to do to allow the greatest engine in the world economy that we've ever seen, that's the United States and capitalism, actually work. Actually accomplish what we need to accomplish to provide for Americans, and frankly, we provide for the rest of the world. One of the things that I'm enormously concerned about is this computer semiconductor shortage, where we have exported our production capacity for 30 years now, not just to China, but to countries near China, that when our national defense strategy indicates we're likely to come into conflict in the next few years, our entire or 90% of our semiconductor capacity is going to be disrupted. While that's happening, we're shipping Javelin missiles to Ukraine that each Javelin missile has 250 computer chips on it. We are weakening ourselves repeatedly through poor leadership and bad ideas coming out of Washington, D.C., and we need people to go there who just know how it works and can vote the right way to stop this nonsense.
Inflation is closing in on 10%. Supply chains are broken. New cars are being sold without computer chips. Interest rates are rising. Mr. Irwin, if the Republicans can return to the majority in November, what can they do to bring stability to our economy?
It comes back to fiscal responsibility of our government. When we're spending taxpayer money on cell phones for illegal aliens so we can track them, and for crack pipes for dopers, that's irresponsible. We need to take those monies and keep it in-house and pay off our debt, bring back stability, and we have to get our energy independence. That's going to bring the prices down right away and bring more stability. And then we need to get rid of all these crazy mandates that are coming from our government. Mandates and over-regulations. It's our business will pick up and go phenomenally if we get rid of our government regulations. We are a country of laws, not mandates, and that comes from, the First, Second Amendment and the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, which clearly calls us one nation under God. So let's stick with the law, stop the mandates, stop the over-regulations of businesses.
Mr. LeBrew, inflation is closing in on 10%. Supply chains are broken. New cars are being sold without computer chips, and the interest rates are rising. If elected, if the Republicans can return to the majority in November, what can they do to bring stability to the economy?
Well, the reason that we have inflation is because the government's living too well, as Ronald Reagan would say. They printed money, and if you got money from the federal government, you got shortchanged, because they gave a lot more money to their friends and corporations. So the first thing we got to do is we have to have transparency on where our tax dollars are going, because we're actually seeing the fruits of the government's labors right now. The second thing is we need to go back to what Donald Trump was trying to do. We need fair trade agreements. You wouldn't do business with any person in reality if every time that you traded with them, you lost money. How long would you stay in business? As a business owner, I can tell you, not very long. And so as a business owner, I can tell you, one of the things that I would try to do is get back to good deals. When we're trading with other countries, it needs to be fair. It needs to be an honest, they're bringing a product to the table, we're bringing a product to the table. And we're both offering it at a very fair price. So for me, we got to do that. We also have to get back to pumping gas. And I know that it sounds like we're beating a dead horse here, but petroleum touches everything in this world. Everything in our country. Our energy, as Bill said, our food, in your day-to-day, just the small guy getting to work. So we have to pump oil right now, because oil will help us quicker than anything else.
Okay, Mr. LeBrew, should you win and the people of Missouri send you to Washington, D.C., what assurances will you give us that you will stick to the values of the people who elect you and that you don't become just another K Street rhino?
I think one of the awesome things about me, not to toot my own horn, but I think I'm the only person here that has funded my campaign 100% with my own money. So I have the ability to say no, and I have the ability to say yes anytime I want. I don't have any kind of special interest groups behind me. I don't have 1,000 different endorsements from a lot of different places, because I haven't sought them. The endorsement that I want is from the people of the 4th District. And that's what we've done as we've knocked doors and we've looked people in the eyes and made promises. That's who I am as a candidate. I'm the person that is small town, small business, wants to bring that voice to Congress. And I promise that I will be true to myself, and most importantly, I'll be true to my family. You guys don't know my wife, but I promise you she'll hold me accountable, even more than the American people. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Irwin, should you win and the people of Missouri send you to Washington, D.C., what assurances will you give us that you'll stick to the values of the people who elect you and that you don't become just another K Street rhino?
One of my principles that I speak of regularly is duty, honor, country. And it goes back to what I started with this book. The first duty of man is to fear God and obey his commandments. The first of the 10 commandments, with a promise to you, is if thou shalt honor thy father and mother. God has something really great for you. So my priorities are duty, which is to God, and then family, and then country. So that's my thesis. That's who I am. I'm going to stand up for that. I wrote down my platform so people can look at it and hold me accountable. And I expect to be held accountable. That's what we do in the United States military. We hold each other accountable, and we say, you do this or you're in trouble. And I would expect somebody to get on the phone, and I wrote it down in detail, and say, hey, knucklehead, you said you were going to do this when you were on the air and the radio. What's going on? And then I'd expect to be able to give him an answer.
All right, Mr. Burks, same question. Should you win and the people of Missouri send you to Washington, D.C., what assurances would you give that you will stick to the values of the people who elect you and that you don't just become just another K Street rhino?
I firmly believe that iron sharpens iron, and who we surround ourselves with and who inputs into our lives determines what we're going to provide, the fruits that we show to others. I am one of those that have received a number of endorsements, but look at those endorsements, please. U.S. Senator Tom Cotton, a number of members of Congress who have been veterans and serve on House Armed Services. With Honor, a veterans group. Frontline Patriots PAC, a veterans group. Raptor PAC, that's a veterans group. You get the theme here. Missouri Council of Firefighters, public safety professionals. These are people who care about serving and protecting this country, and that's why they've endorsed my campaign and supported me. I've also taken a term limits pledge. I firmly believe that too many people go native in Washington, D.C. And not just the U.S. term limits pledge where I promise to support a constitutional amendment. I've taken a personal term limits pledge. So I support a constitutional amendment, but where a lot of politicians get around it is they say, until it's an actual amendment, I'm just going to keep serving. And I've said, I'll support that amendment, but I'm also going to limit myself to 10 years in D.C. My wife and my boys are going to continue to live in this congressional district. I'm going to come home every weekend to serve my constituents here, and then at the end of my tenure in Congress, come back to Missouri and live under the same rules that I helped write in Washington, D.C. That's how we show we're accountable to each other, our willingness to continue to serve, not in D.C., but our families, our churches, our communities when we come back.
You each get now 2 minutes for a closing statement, and we'll start at the end. Mr. Irwin.
My life has been that of a public servant and a fighter. We need fighters, not politicians, to stand for our values and belief. I'm not a politician leaving unfinished business looking for my next political job, or not a public figure. I've sworn an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and there's a clear and present danger facing America. We must change course. On the most secret missions, where failure is not an option, America sends in the SEALs, and that's me. That's what I do. If you read the book of Psalms, there's a psalm in there. It's the 78th psalm. If you detail it out, it talks about your children and your children's children, that we must teach them about our Lord and God. And you ought to take that to heart, because this is about our children and our children's children and their future. And we need to not forget the works of God. We need to pray for our country. That's the only way we're going to turn it around. We've got to get down on our knees and actually pray. And I know what tough lives look like, and I don't give up. I can make a difference. I need your help. I need your vote. I'm Bill Irwin, and I'm asking for your vote. And I just want to share one thing about what a newspaper said to me once, recently in an article in Kansas City. They said, I'm a nice guy, but I'm too conservative, and I've never been a politician. Well, I took that as a compliment, so good to go. And one other thing, Governor DeSantis, he's running. I like him. We spent some time in Fallujah together when we raised my grandfather's flag that was in World War I up to the top of the mast in the face of our enemies. Hey, America, we got to fight now. Bill Irwin, appreciate your support, appreciate your vote.
All right, Taylor Burks, 2 minutes.
Thank you. We can look around the world and see so many things going on, and we pick, how do we focus on the right issue to solve right now? We're told in one area it's the